Previously on the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast.
In a book club first, I'm going to be picking a novel that was not officially published by the BBC. A novel that in fact was rejected. We're going to be reading Campaign by Jim Mortimer.
Yes! Excellent!
And to celebrate our 60th episode, you, dear listener, can read along with us. The book is available for free online on the New Zealand Doctor Who Fan Club website for all to read. And it's got, I think, author commentary that's longer than the book itself, which I may set aside and not read.
And now our story continues.
Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London.
Happy February and happy 60th.
Yes, indeed.
60th
Indeed.
ever episode.
Yes.
So we're tying the output of the original Book Club podcast, although you could probably say we've broken the tie as we've done a few more special releases and some of our books were double features. I'm excited. It seems like we got here a lot faster than I thought we would, but
Yeah.
it's probably because time feels like it keeps moving faster the older you get.
Yes.
I think, was it you that sent me was it listener Shag who said it's been the same length of time now since the TV movie as it was the entirety of the classic series?
Yeah, from the time from An Earthly Child to the TV movie is the same as the TV movie is to now.
Wow. 26 years.
Yeah, it makes me feel old. Well, time is just crazy.
Speaking of time, this month we're reading Campaign by Jim Mortimer.
Yes.
And this selection's available online for free at the New Zealand Doctor Who Fan Club website. So you can access it there and go and have a read and come back to us, and we'll include a link in the show notes.
Yes. Yeah, because this book has an interesting history, which we'll get into.
Oh, yes. But first, we have a bit of book news to share. 5 new Target novelizations have been announced for this summer, due out in July. Well, 3 new and 2 that have already come out in audiobook form. There's a couple of titles from David Fisher, which will exist alongside the earlier Terrance Dicks adaptations. I don't know if you heard about that news at all.
I haven't, no.
And Paul Hayes mentioned on Twitter that when he interviewed David Fisher a few years ago, he claimed that David had actually parted ways with his agent at the time over not being given the opportunity to write these 2 Target novelizations.
Oh.
So, of course, The Stones of Blood and Androids of Tara.
Yeah, yeah.
So we've got his version of those in audio form.
Yeah, because David Fisher, he's moved to the writer's room in the sky, hasn't he, I think? So many of the writers from that period have passed.
He passed away in January of 2018.
Yeah, yeah.
So he did manage to novelize his stories prior to his passing, huh?
Yes. Or the creation of it is even more remarkable than normal. But, yes.
And then the other 3 Target books.
Yes.
So James Moran is novelizing his script for The Fires of Pompeii.
Oh, okay.
And I'm hoping he does kind of a throw forward with Capaldi's character. You know, so maybe a line like, "The doctor was strangely drawn to Caecilius, studying his face intently, as if memorizing every line, every strand of hair and wrinkle for future reference," or something to that effect.
You'd have thought maybe, yes.
And then
yeah.
Peter Harness is adapting The Zygon Invasion, and he's confirmed on Twitter that it's going to include both parts, but
Yeah.
it's probably a little too late to rename the book Doctor Who and the Inversion of the Zygon Invasion, but it'd be fun if they did. And then Rona Munro is adapting The Eaters of Light. So that'll be her second Target novelization since she had also adapted Survival.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah.
And I guess, if they had adapted the Pandorica and Big Bang, we could have had a kind of a Roman Empire trilogy in this wave.
Yes, we could have. Yes.
And in other news, the BBC Writers' Room has published the full shooting scripts for Flux, as well as Eve of the Daleks, and it looks like they've added a fair number of other scripts as well, including Paul Cornell's. So
yeah,
we'll include a link in the show notes to that.
Yeah, there's been quite a bit of excitement about shooting script with people saying, "Oh, there was this little Easter egg referencing Capaldi and McCoy," and yeah, that was quite obvious. It was when the Doctor using release as a code word.
Oh, yeah, in Scottish.
I clocked that at the time. I don't think that was... I mean, okay, sure, it was a callback, but it wasn't exactly... I don't know if it was an amazingly subtle...
Yeah, and I was thinking it would most likely have been the 12th Doctor, but it could have been either.
Yeah.
So I guess that brings us to Show and Tell. Chris, what do you have for us this month?
What do I have for Show and Tell this month? So I was driving in my car a little while ago, which is due to working from home. This is not something I do frequently. And I happened to hear Exterminate by DMS. And this was a rave song from 1991.
Huh.
And it features Dalek voices, but to a kind of like it's like a house mix. It's quite something. Listen to it. I vaguely remember hearing it at the time because I think it's original, specifically recorded Dalek voices. I don't think they got Roy Skelton or someone like that to do them. But yeah, it's an interesting bit of wilderness years popular culture.
Kind of random bits showing up. That's cool. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that. I'll have to seek it out, and I don't know if it's on YouTube or...
It is, yeah. If you exterminate, if you Google exterminate and DMS, which is Dalek Metebolus Scaro, using a phonetic alphabet I've just come up with, then you can find it, and it's... Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily something I'm going to put on permanent repeat. Mm-hmm. It's got some high beats per minute, so it might be good for exercise.
Excellent. Very cool.
I don't think DMS went on to do much else. But yeah, I particularly recommend the Day of the Hardcore mix. Okay. So there are a few different mixes. And that was the A-side to their single.
Huh.
Right. How about you, Matt?
Well, I'm going to chat about Console Room, which happened recently in the Twin Cities. And guests of honor were Mark Strickson and one John Peel. Mm. And other guests included Kaleidoscope's Greg Bakken and returning guest Richard Ashton, who played Friday the Ice Warrior. And it was a lot of COVID precautions in place, so everyone was masked pretty much at all times, including on stage, and you had to show proof of vaccination to get into the event. And it was good. And also a kind of a hybrid event where they had a bunch of panels online and as well as in person, and some live broadcasts of panels. And they're going to, I think, continue to add to the panels being available. And there was a very nice, very well catered guest of honor reception. And I did get to have a drink with John Peel, and talked about how his book Evolution was the first ever Doctor Who book that I had ever read. And then he went on to sign my copy of Time Worm Genesis and wrote "Watch Out" on it, so that was interesting. And he had quite a bit to share about working with Terry Nation over the years and being a fan of the program since he was 9 years old. He didn't even really have any missing episodes, because the only 3 that he missed were the first 3 parts of An Unearthly Child. He started watching during part 4.
Wow. Yeah, it's a very interesting life that John Peel has led.
Yeah, and he's also a big fan of Star Trek Lower Decks, so we had a good discussion about that, and if there was an animated Doctor Who version of that, who might that feature? And his suggestion was the person monitoring the radar on Gallifrey in the Invasion of Time. Or like a mid-tier unit like Corporal Bell and such. Mm. And you could have like the Ogrons, kind of like in the Packlet role.
Yeah.
And I managed to ask Mark Strickson a question about the Earthlink dilemma of all things. So let's have a listen to that.
Thank you, Matt. And then we have another Matt that wants to ask a question. Hi, this question may be a little esoteric, but way back in 1986, you wrote the foreword to a novel that continued Turlough's adventures called The Earthlink Dilemma. And I'm wondering if you can exclusively reveal, some 36 years later, whether you actually read the book.
I can exclusively reveal that I did read the book. And I can tell you how I know I read the book, because Tony Attwood, the author, come on, be impressed.
Yep.
Tony Attwood, the author's description of Turlough is exactly what I was wearing when I first met Tony to discuss the book with him. I think it's green jeans and a t-shirt or something, right? I was definitely wearing green jeans, right? Light green jeans. So his description of Turlough is his description of me when he met me. And that goes back to one of the joys of, or not one of the joys of being an actor. When you play a part that you can bring a lot of yourself to, acting becomes very easy. When you play a part that you have to act, it becomes a lot more difficult. I didn't feel I had to act too much to be Turlough. I didn't feel I had to act too much to be the young Scrooge. But for example, in the soap opera where I was playing an ambulanceman with a Birmingham accent, I had to do lots of acting that wasn't me. And I've played, policemen in the north of England. I've done all sorts of things, right? So the closer a part is to you, then the easier it is. So I did actually have quite a lot of input into that with Tony. And he'd ring me up and ask my advice about things.
So as you heard, Mark actually did read Turlough and the Earthlink Dilemma prior to writing the foreword, and he rattled off a whole bunch of details about the plot. So that was fantastic. We learned quite a bit about his nature documentary career and how he had discovered Steve Irwin, of all people.
Yeah, because he is responsible for Steve Irwin. Yeah, and keeping Australia Zoo. Yeah, I don't. Well, maybe Australia Zoo has had a lean couple of years, but I imagine it. Apart from until this decade, it's done quite well. I imagine Mark Strickson played no small part in that. Yes.
And I was on a panel going through all the different TARDIS interiors over the years. That was quite nerdy and a lot of fun. And that one's up on YouTube.
Cool.
And we'll link to that. And just want to say thank you and kudos to the convention organizers, including friend of the show and convention founder Jason Tucker, along with Amber Radin and her team. They just did a fantastic job of, like I mentioned earlier, balancing the in-person stuff and the virtual content on Discord. And they pulled it off without any, technical gremlins sneaking in to mess things up. So it was great.
Yeah, because that's no small feat, I imagine, running an event in the uncertain times in which we live. So
this brings us to Campaign by Jim Mortimer.
Yes.
And like the earlier Jim Mortimer book we read, Eye of Heaven, the book structure is kind of complicated.
Oh, yes.
This was a self-published work where originally a version of this book was commissioned by BBC Books, but what was submitted and later rejected, that was self-published by the author with proceeds going to charity.
Yes.
This was published back in, I think, April of 2000 originally, and there's quite a bit of author notes about that. I don't know if you read any of that.
I
portion.
read some of it, but on the PDF, as I think we said last time, it's probably about I think 2/3 of the PDF is the novel. And then the remaining third is various author notes. He has a lot to say, however, yes, I think maybe in a slower time I might have a read through.
And there's some differences between the original published version and the version 2.0, which was published in 2008, and a little bit of added detail and spelling corrections and some painted color illustrations by Tim Keeble.
Yeah. Well, he lost his original version because he had the bane of a Doctor Who author. He had a computer drive failure, and so he lost the original. And so when Paul Scoons was putting together this version for the New Zealand Doctor Who fan club, Jim Mortimer had to send him a printed copy, and Paul then just scanned in page by page.
And I think Paul may have had to offer up his own copy to get a...
No, I think he was sent a specific. Okay. He was sent an additional one or something. But
yeah,
yeah,
because that would have been even more going above and beyond. But
Yes.
yeah, thank you, Paul, who I think who's a listener of ours.
Yes, or it has been in the past, certainly. Yes.
And
Yes.
thank you so much for doing the work to digitize and recreate this work so we can all
Yes.
experience it.
Yes. Yeah.
Do we want to say anything else about Jim Mortimer? Was this his last published work for Doctor Who?
It was, yes, yeah. Though in the form of a novel, yes, he's written plays for Big Finish and some music for Big Finish as well. And he also has a Bandcamp page, so he is still there as a musician. Because certainly I remember when he was kind of like first coming on the Doctor Who scene, people were quite excited because he was known in the Bristol area as quite a serious club musician. So, yeah.
And the book itself is organized into various sections, kind of labeled Now and Now Infinity, and it it opens with 4 quotes from one of the popes, Aristotle, Alfred Bester, and Jim Mortimer himself. And then instead of chapters, we get kind of lowercase n's followed by section numbers. And the book also features shifting first-person narration throughout. So a lot of point-of-view shifts and some surprising ones.
Yeah, Dila said if you've not read this book yet and you're about to, I'll just say this is not a book that you can easily kind of like dip in and out of, or at least certainly in my experience. It's one of these things that you have to kind of like set time aside to read.
Yeah.
It's not a reading on the bus whilst going to work kind of book.
Yeah, it requires quite a bit of concentration and a bit of a content warning as well. Later in the book, there's some discussion around like suicidal ideation and tendencies. So if you're struggling with those at all, you may want to give that portion of the discussion a pass.
Yeah.
All right, shall we?
Let's begin.
Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll start. So the book opens from Alexander the Great's perspective as he's lying in the desert near death from hunger and thirst. And most of Alexander the Great's conquests are still to come in the future. If he dies now, none of these will come to be. And Alexander experiences a hallucination where first his father, then the god Apollo appear, morphing into a desert serpent and a winged bird. And exhausted, he follows the animals to a nearby oasis, which is his destination, the Oracle of Siwa, which is in Assassin's Creed.
That's cool.
So if you play Assassin's Creed Origins, you will see the Oracle of Siwa. And and so once he gets to Siwa, he asks the Oracle if he will become king of Persia, defeating Darius. And the Oracle responds that Alexander will rule the world eventually, but that the Oracle's messengers, who are the Doctor, Ian, Barbara and Susan, will have to die for the vision to be fulfilled. So it's an ominous start.
And I have to admit, being a typically ignorant American, like my background when it comes to Alexander the Great is, I think, the Oliver Stone movie and
right. I've not seen that.
The 300 movie.
Right.
And that's about it.
Yeah. Alexander the Great he got as far as Kuwait.
Wow.
So, it was quite a wide-reaching empire. However, there wasn't a lot of infrastructure. And so, hence, it crumbled away pretty quickly when he died in his 30s. Yeah, it's one of these things where I do wonder to what extent... I know he has the nickname of the Great, but it's regarded by some as a kind of like a high point, but it's a high point.
Yeah, based on conquest, which,
Yes, oh yes.
Whether you're the conquered people or not.
Yes, it's not, no,
Not as,
yeah.
So then we switch first-person perspective
Yes.
from Alexander to Ian's point of view, who's safely aboard the TARDIS. But this isn't exactly the Ian of the television series. Rather, it becomes apparent that... By the way, it's good going into this. You need to have a lot of background on the origins of Doctor Who and the first Doctor in general, because there's a lot of continuity references throughout, and very obscure ones at that. So here, rather than the Ian being, from the TV show, it's the Ian that wandered into the TARDIS on Barnes Common in the novelization of Doctor Who and the Daleks by David Whittaker to report witnessing a car crash involving Barbara. And I think that's the same commons that David Bradley stops at the beginning of An Adventure of Space and Time. Or is that a different one? Where he's...
I think it... is it Barnes? It's certainly round there, but it's the same common where Mark Boland, the singer from T-Rex, died in a car crash in the 70s. So it's quite close to kind of like Putney and Wimbledon.
Okay, that area.
Yeah, it's South London, very much the posh bit. But yeah.
And here too, we have Susan, but she's Susan English and not Susan Foreman. And unfortunately, in this reality, we learned that Barbara had died on Skaro as a result of radiation poisoning. And the remaining TARDIS crew are still affected by her passing some months later. And this is where our dramatic reading comes in, read by friend of the show and fellow podcaster Bill Evenson. And you can hear Bill on his Frankenstein Minute podcast, and he's also a frequent contributor to Reality Bomb. So let's have a listen.
I stared around the chamber that was the nerve center of TARDIS, noting the chipped bust of Napoleon, the ormolu clock on its gloriously lacquered plinth, the Martian chess set, princesses and lords and priests arranged in significant positions of attack and defense across the domed board, details at the cardinal points of the room, adjuncts to the nexus, a control system located at the heart of the chamber. Here were 6 trapezoidal panels, smothered in a frenzy of scratched knobs and grimy rheostats as if with weeds. Dials flickered and lamps pulsed. Growing intermittently from the center of this cacophony of circuits, an inquisitive flower of glass pulsed with light which seemed to slide across the machine surfaces like a liquid. Indeed, it was the brightest source in the room, with one exception. Prominent on the farthest wall, opposite the wide double exterior doors, the scanner screen held a lozenge-shaped slice through the universe. Though it looked like an old-fashioned television set, the scanner had, in the past, displayed images no one on Earth had ever seen before. In the farthest corners of the room, quivering shadows congregated around machines which squatted in gloomy isolation, their relays ticking above a low-frequency electrical hum from the power sources. Reels turned smoothly back and forth, endlessly subdividing the informational content of forever. The hum, the swish of tape, the crackle of valves, all this the heartbeat of TARDIS, creeping into my body through the soles of my shoes and making the skin of my toes and fingers tingle. From time to time, my hair and eyebrows tickled with static-derived independent life. The dust, the plastic knobs, the clunky, bake-like presence of the machine was as out of place in the concept of a vehicle capable of traversing all of time and space as the idiosyncratic man who owned and operated it. Thinking this, my gaze fell inevitably on the one who directed our flight through the dimensional vortex he called home, the Doctor. A puzzle wrapped in an enigma. He stood at the controls, hands unobtrusively orchestrating our movement through eternity, his black coat and eyes drinking in the dim light, his shock of white hair backlit by the glare of a spiral galaxy displayed on the scanner screen. Stars. His eyes were stars. Barbara would have found the image appropriate and moving, no doubt.
Mr. Chesterton.
He acknowledged my presence with a tiny bird-like movement of his shoulders, though his eyes never left the dials and readouts upon which his attention was clearly fixed. I tried to hold on to my anger, to focus and direct that emotion. What else was I to do? What else was there left? A job I had once found easy, I now discovered was harder than I expected. Was that Susan's calming influence? In truth, there was something of Susan in her grandfather, although in him the concern was masked with a rough edge and abrasive tone. What did he feel about Barbara's death? In a very real way, it was his fault. He had never spoken of his feelings about the matter one way or another. Though I no longer blamed him for the death of my friend, and our only other human companion, I still felt antagonistic, aggressive, threatened, scared. I disengaged my hand from Susan's. She did not seem to take offense. There had been a time when I felt I could get to know, perhaps even like, this ancient, cantankerous, mysterious figure. But now I realized I'd been thinking like a human, thinking like one forever bound in the rigid, unidirectional structure which was all anyone of my race had ever experienced of time and space. I knew now I could never hope to truly know a man, if man he was, whose age was separated from mine by so vast a tract of time and experience. What a dreadful irony that it cost the death of such a dear friend to buy that experience.
Thanks, Bill, for reading that.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
And again, you can catch Bill on Reality Bomb and Frankenstein Minute. So the Doctor is telling Ian and Susan that the TARDIS instrumentation is worrying, because beyond the TARDIS doors, the rest of the universe has ceased to exist. There is no time or space detected outside of the ship, and it's unknown whether TARDIS, spelt with full stops in between, was plucked out of time and space and is in a new reality, or if the universe has been destroyed around them and they're floating on some kind of island of being.
Yeah. The TARDIS itself.
Yes.
Kind of like the opening to The Mind Robber.
It is a bit, isn't it?
And one of the hints is really like how in terms of like, okay, which reality are we in? Like you were saying, if you pay attention to how TARDIS is spelt and whether it uses like a definitive article at the front of it, you can kind of like, okay, at least we know we're not in like the main, television continuity.
Yes.
Because that's, I think, fairly consistent throughout.
Yeah. And then Ian promptly faints as Barbara comes walking into the control room, refreshed as if nothing's happened. And she hadn't died some months before. And Barbara and Ian compare notes. We learn this version of Barbara isn't a secretary, but she's in fact a history teacher from Coal Hill School. And Ian remarks he recognises the name of the school as being in North London, but he's never been there. Which I think that's interesting that he recognises names of schools.
Because I think, he's a university physicist.
He's not a teacher. Is this Ian? He's not a teacher, so maybe he has a few people kind of like trying to enter his university from Coal Hill. I don't know. But Barbara asks how they met, and Ian tells her about Barbara's car accident involving her Mini. But Barbara says she doesn't drive a car, and also hadn't been in a car accident. So it's getting stranger and stranger.
Yeah, and this is just the beginning.
Oh, yes. Yes. If you think this is bizarre now,
just hold on.
Hold tight, yeah.
So, from Barbara's perspective, she's just finished an adventure with Alexander where he had fallen ill and died, and she had accompanied his army marching back from Macedonia.
Back to Macedonia, I think, because Macedonia is, I think, roughly where he's from. But,
returning to.
Sorry. I'm a son of a classicist,
and how did Alexander die in real life? I don't even think I know that.
I think that he died. He died from excess at a party, or possibly poisoning.
Huh.
Yeah, he'd basically been on an all-nighter drinking. And developed a fever, and he wasn't able to speak. And soldiers that were anxious about him were allowed to walk past him whilst he silently waved at them, which I'm sure would have been reassuring for everybody.
Yeah.
But so there's a possibility he may have been assassinated. But all of this happened in Babylon.
Okay. And not...
As in Garden of, so modern-day Iraq.
Huh. So in this continuity, has reached India.
Yes.
And from Barbara's perspective, the TARDIS is in Pella at Alexander's palace. And so is Pella...
I'm just checking.
Like I should have done more research into...
Yeah, Pella is in Macedonia.
Okay. So
yes.
Back in his home state. And Aristotle was also involved in this adventure. So we later learn from Jim Mortimer's notes that, this is all based on an earlier outline he had for, more of a celebrity, a historical sort of featuring Alexander called Burning Artemis.
Yes, presumably what the BBC thought they were buying. Yes.
So weaving in details from unpublished drafts into the narrative. And as Ian and Barbara are discussing things, they both remember, the caveman adventure from An Unearthly Child, but from there, their timelines diverge further, and Barbara remembers visiting the crystal city of Luxor, but, from Ian's perspective, the next stop was Skaro. And then they're rejoined by the Doctor and Susan, who then lead them deeper into the TARDIS, into areas that they've never visited before, the real interesting bits, where they come to a room where they go inside, it feels like they're outside, and they're like at a Mediterranean rooftop sort of courtyard library, complete with like an artificial sun in the sky. And this library is kind of magical. It features edible fruit that contains knowledge, not unlike the Garden of Eden, or there was that one short trip story we read where Leela consumes fruit and learns in the same way. Yeah. And Barbara goes into details from her most recent adventure, talking about how Alexander's army made their way to India in the spring of 236 BCE, going through like the Khyber Pass.
Yeah, I quite like to think about the library conveying knowledge through fruit, as the Doctor says that things being written on paper, dead bits of tree in essence, is kind of, I mean, it doesn't say so barbaric, but it's something along those lines. And it's an interesting approach, isn't it? And kind of like almost foreshadows our own, far more digital world than the world of 2000. Yeah. So reality shifts again. As it does with pretty much every chapter. And Susan is recalling adventures with the Emperor. And also we learn that Susan has a baby son called Philip, who is implied to be Alexander's son. There's that. And Ian has got vague memories of dying on this adventure, being a soldier in Alexander's army, and being killed as an arrow pierces his heart, with him falling and being crushed by a chariot and drowning in the mud. So Ian goes to sleep in the TARDIS in block capitals, but wakes up in the TARDIS in camel case. So it's that kind of book. And Barbara has become Amy, who is still a history teacher, and the Doctor is now Doctor Who. No, Amy. I was trying to place it. It was Amy. Is Amy from like the original Coburn sort of like draft?
Yeah, it's one of the drafts. I think there's 5 or 6 different drafts, and he uses characters from all of them. So you get like Amy's and Lola's and all sorts of people. And I have no idea who belongs to which, but different early iterations of the character, as the script was progressing through whatever layer of BBC committee. Yes. I think there's some from like Bunny Weber's treatment of Doctor Who later on. Yeah, it's just kind of all over. Yeah.
Yes. So there's also in the TARDIS a talking French bulldog with a Bronx accent called Butch. I don't think Butch is in any of the
I'm not sure what that's from.
And Butch the dog implores Ian to join the dots, with great emphasis on that phrase. And Ian suggests they might all be trapped in an experiment or game, possibly a logic maze to see how they might perform. And Barbara dismisses this as a paranoid delusion, which I find interesting, bearing in mind that Edge of Destruction, well, maybe Edge of Destruction hadn't happened to her.
Yeah, it depends on which version of Barbara, yeah.
Well, I mean, given that at least one version of Barbara that's rocked up in this went to the Crystal City of Luxor, which was the alternative second Doctor Who story. Who knows? So Ian is suspicious of Doctor Who and Susan, thinking they might be behind this. And he's actually experienced the Edge of Destruction because he recalls what happened to the ship then, and also the Doctor's hijinks with the fluid link on Skaro. So, yeah. I mean, to be fair, if you're from the TV timeline, at that stage, the Doctor's got form, hasn't he? Doing weird stuff.
It's interesting, too, that we get different takes on Alexander. And in some of the versions, Alexander is with Susan and his son Philip is born. Yeah. And in others, it's hinted that he's kind of infatuated with Ian.
Yes.
I think maybe in a nod to Alexander's bisexuality.
Yes, yeah.
Because at one point in the narrative, he even refers to, like, my beloved Ian.
Yeah.
And then we kind of shift to Susan's point of view, where her memories are also changing. She recalls being abandoned and lost in time during Alexander's reign, taking shelter outside the city of Besfer and living there for 6 years before the inhabitants were slaughtered by Alexander's men. And Susan also has a memory of being killed by Ian specifically during the siege in her town, and which is kind of haunting. And Alexander had the town destroyed because he learned while on the march to
Samarkand.
Samarkand.
Yeah.
That the town of Besfer was populated with the descendants of Greeks who had collaborated with the Persian king Xerxes in his invasion of Macedonia some 150 years earlier. And then reality shifts yet again, and we learn the inhabitants of the capital Tardis have been living and exploring the ship for ages now, like something like I think 20 or 30 years, where Susan's son is growing older, and they appear to be about the same age. And in this reality, Ian had died after drinking contaminated water from the Bosphorus River in Persia during Alexander's campaign. And instead of Ian and Barbara, it shifts again, and we now have Cliff the scientist and Lola McGovern, who's an art teacher, who I think are from Bunny Weber, C.E. Weber's treatment, which predated An Unearthly Child by some 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we have two different versions of Susan English. We have Susan English, or we have Sue English. Yeah. And Sue is the one who loves to smoke cigarettes and talk trash, much to Cliff and Lola's dismay.
Yes.
So they keep multiplying.
Yeah, they keep multiplying, but not all in the same space.
True.
So it is frequently the case that you only have one of the archetype of the Doctor, or one instance of the Doctor, one instance of a Barbara figure, one of an Ian figure, and one of a Susan figure. And every now and again, a talking French bulldog with a Bronx accent.
And yeah, it's almost very similar to episode 3 of Flux, where you have the flashbacks to Division, where it's the same character. They're playing slightly different versions, or kind of flittering in and out of existence.
Yes, that's a bit. I didn't have to concentrate as much as when I was watching Flux. But I didn't feel that I needed to do diagrams. So Ian, we are back with a version of Ian now, and Ian is recalling further adventures with Alexander, camped with his army along the shores of Carrier, I think. I don't know where Carrier is, but we're in 334 BCE. And he's also remembering his encounters with Clytus the Black, Alexander's most trusted officer. So Ian becomes violent with Susan, gripping her arm in a vice, as he blames her and the Doctor for their current predicament and the universe collapsing outside the contents of the ship. And reality changes again. When reality changes, it is just a chapter, and it's not like there's an enormous special effect, but
it's just reaction shot, and suddenly you're in another reality.
And this time Ian recalls being saved by Porus and Alexander on the battlefield, where he wasn't crushed to death by a chariot, because that happened in one of these versions. I do hope you're keeping up. We will be asking questions later.
It's kind of like Groundhog Day, where it's multiple deaths and
Well, it's like the other film of a kind of a time loop featuring a guy from SNL, the bloke from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
That's not Hot Tub Time Machine, is it?
No, it's not Hot Tub Time Machine. It's Palm Springs, possibly. It's a comedy type thing, but with a lot of deaths. So anyway, Barbara is trying to rationalise the changes in reality and speculates they might be living in someone else's dream, which is
as good of a guess as any.
Yes. Time wears on, and possibly decades have passed with them being stuck in the ship. And Susan's child is older now, and they seem to be kind of about the same age, as we were saying earlier. And Susan and the Doctor don't seem to age at the same rate as the rest of the TARDIS crew. And TARDIS is now spelt with full stops in between, which kind of is interesting. It suggests that Susan's son might not be Gallifreyan,
or is hasn't inherited that aspect and is more human in terms of how they age.
It does kind of make you also wonder just how David Campbell and Susan how they fare in years ago. I appreciate that Big Finish do go into bits of that, but
and I'm sure some of these Susans are humans from Earth as opposed to the Doctor's granddaughter too, depending on the version of the script or continuity too.
Yes. Some of them might be really, really small children.
I don't know if we get any Peter Cushing cameos in this. I think they at least stick in the...
Yeah, I think so, possibly. But so still the years wear on. There's different members of the crew trying to sort of seek solace at different points, sometimes going months or years without encountering or speaking to each other, being driven by loneliness and isolation, or at least that's what their shifting memories lead them to believe. So, yeah. So it's a fun romp, this book, isn't it?
Yeah, and we're talking like, it's going through Ian's and Barbara's and Doctors and Susan's and
Yes.
Cliff's and Lola's and
Yep.
Amy's and Bridget's and
Yep.
Mandy's, and it's just all sorts of, it's a lot to keep straight.
Yeah, because like it is very hard to just keep track because it's difficult to find something to anchor you in. I found, but anyway, slightly showed my hand here.
So then the Doctor visits the secondary control room, and rather than find its wood paneled elegance, he's find that it's been deconstructed into like a hall of mirrors, a kaleidoscope of fragments of different lives playing out. And that reminded me a little bit of like the quantum anvil that we got in last month's story, in terms of the different realities.
Yeah.
And then things continue to shift, and we have all sorts of adventures referenced, many from the annuals and the comics at the time. So we've got Sensorites and giant spiders and the Yend and the Zarbi Supremo and the intelligent colony ship on its way from the Andromeda Galaxy to the Milky Way. And we keep hearing the phrase "join the dots" repeated by different characters in different contexts as this life folds out in place in different iterations, aboard the TARDIS. And this is all very self-contained, kind of like a inside the spaceship sort of adventure.
Yeah. So as this has been going on for years, eventually Ian is. This is where we go into content warning. As we've already. So Ian's driven to suicide, wanting to jump out the TARDIS doors into the void, but the doors won't budge, and he's able to open the doors using the TARDIS wall crank, as seen in Death to the Daleks. Because I don't think it happens anywhere else. I can't remember it happening anywhere else. And Ian jumps into the nothingness, only to be resurrected when reality shifts again. And later, in a rage and going mad by the endless rewriting of existence, Ian even kills the Doctor multiple times in the console room, causing him to regenerate over and over again. And in a bit of unintentional foreshadowing of Time of the Doctor and The Timeless Child, the Doctor regenerates beyond his 12-time limit, telling Ian, and sometimes Cliff, over and over again, to join the dots. The Doctor says that it's not the points that are important, but the relationship between them, and that the ship is trying to tell him what is happening in its own way. So,
yeah, that was a very intense sequence.
Yes.
Especially because I was like visualizing, because Jim Mortimer doesn't go into super detail as to like which Doctor is speaking these lines, but in my mind, it was going through all of the known Doctors that we have, and including John Hurt popping up.
Yes,
at one point.
Well, and also the 14th Doctor, whoever they may be.
Yes.
So, yes.
And at this point in the narrative, different imagery is presented to the reader, implying some sort of board game.
Yes. No audio adaptation of this book could be possible.
Yeah, it's true. For example, we meet a collection of 4 different robots and are told to go back to start. And we meet the Mortimer family without the E.
Yeah.
Similar to the author's surname, from Doctor Who and the Invasion from Space, which I think we've covered the audiobook release of that on the show before, but that was the first ever Doctor Who original fiction published back in 1966 in that same format as like the annuals. Yeah. And this is that family of 4 that the Doctor rescues from the Great Fire of London, who are extremely religious and are under the impression that the Doctor's an agent of Satan, and the TARDIS is his vessel of hell. So you have these 4, so like the parents, Helen and George, the children, Ida and Alan, kind of rocking up, and we see them in pairs. So like Ian and Barbara manifesting as Helen and George. And then in one iteration of reality, we had a grown-up version of Ida and Alan, who are an extremely close brother and sister pair decades on, which just kind of is like, whoa.
Yeah, it's
that happened.
Yes, it's a bit bizarre. So reality starts shifting more quickly as the story progresses. And we're presented with yet further different iterations of the characters. Susan becomes Sue, then Biddy. Barbara is at times Lola, or Amy, or Bridget, or even Mandy. Ian is Alan, or George, or sometimes Cliff. The Doctor is Doctor Who, or Grandfather, or Gramps. The choice is seemingly endless. And at some point, the crew suspect that the TARDIS might be pregnant and could give birth to a new universe to replace the one that's disappeared outside the ship. I mean, at this point...
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, fair enough. Whatever wacky theory.
Yeah, it's like the endless possibility engine.
Yes. So Barbara is convinced that the TARDIS might be behind the shifts in reality. Or it might be a byproduct of the TARDIS being with child. Like, how did the TARDIS get pregnant? What's going on? But there's also kind of like a continuity reset as the cycle of madness continues. As different characters age and die, either killed from old age, by their own hand, or sometimes through the murderous boredom of their constantly changing shipmates.
Yeah.
Diary excerpts spanning several years are presented, as are mysterious scribblings about the rules of the game appearing on monitors throughout the ship.
Yeah, there's all sorts of possibilities that my mind was going to, like the Celestial Toy Maker at points, and other possibilities, or kind of like the Mind Robber.
Yeah.
But as the story progresses and reality breaks down further, different iterations of the same character finally also start existing at the same time. So like Cliff and Ian are able to meet and have a conversation. And this time they find that they've been in this loop for about 40 years. And then various board game configurations and maps are presented to the reader, where it kind of like you start with one fairly simple like board game, and then it's layered atop different versions in almost like a 3 or 4 dimensional structure, and the images keep zooming out, and you realize you're looking at like a DNA double helix sort of thing.
Well, you say board game. I felt that's like being a sum. Because there's like a plus symbol on each page, and then you have like an equals, and then you have the DNA, I think. It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I was quite following that part. It was just
yes,
there's lots of possibilities it could have been.
Yep.
And then we see the Mortimer family again visiting the TARDIS Cathedral, or as they call it, or I think it was probably the Cloister Room, and you have the Doctor's tomb epitaph imploring them to join the dots.
Yeah, because it's like the Doctor's appearing as a hologram of sorts, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes on to instruct them to, the Doctor says, to do as Aristotle instructed, which in order to know oneself, you must discover 10 things that define you and place you within the universe. And the Doctor says these things are substance, quality, quantity, place, time, relation, condition, state, action, and passivity.
Passivity.
Passivity. There we go. The first to know all these things about himself wins the game of me and becomes God. And the Doctor was able to progress to the next level of the game through his death, and he shares his last words: for Ian and for you, Barbara, or you, Susan, my child, for Cliff and Lola, for Sue, Mandy, and Gay, for John and Gillian, George and Helen, for the nameless iterations I will never know, whose names I can never guess. The game of me can be beaten through the sacrifice of their own lives by following Aristotle's principles and knowing themselves. Which is kind of like a dark spin on things,
Yeah.
Like death is the only answer, sort of.
Yes. So as the characters progress through different levels in the game, most of which we see depicted pictorially, we get a comic strip featuring the Doctor and his grandchildren John and Gillian visiting the Tower of Babel. We're also told that finally, after millennia, all the companions in all their iterations have died, and Susan's implied as being the last to go, dying of the sorrow of her broken hearts. And suddenly, after the endgame state has been achieved, reality snaps back into place, and Mr. Chesterton finds himself wiping tears from his eyes, with Susan congratulating him on winning the game, safe in the regular, familiar console room. He remarks, "That was a hell of a game," and Susan refuses to say which planet she picks it up from. Yeah.
Perhaps Quintus or something.
Yes, maybe Quintus, yes. Yeah, so the Doctor wants to know where the games come from as well. She won't tell him. And Susan also tells Ian and Barbara that the game of me changes each time with different objectives. And that sometimes the game is actually quite exciting. And the crew get ready to land at Pella, looking forward to finally meeting Alexander the Great for the first time. Susan reveals she's got quite a crush on Alexander, ever since Barbara's history lesson about him at Coal Hill. And then she asks if anyone wants to have another go at playing the game of me before she disconnects it from the TARDIS console.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, that is the end of the story.
Mm.
Yeah, the book itself ends with a quote from John McElroy from his introduction to Anthony Coburn's The Masters of Luxor script, published by Titan in 1992, which says, "In a universe of infinite possibilities, there are of course worlds in which Luxor was a second story. I wonder if Doctor Who is still running there today." So, yeah.
And he didn't even have to wait, because in this reality it's still running today, so
Yes.
we're incredibly lucky. But
Yes, but in 92 it wasn't.
yeah, but wow, what a journey that was.
Yeah, it was something, wasn't it? What did you make of it?
It was, I mean, kind of bizarre, and it was hard to wrap my head around. And
Yeah.
I have to admit, I was spoiled on kind of the video game conceit of it going in, and I'm glad I was. Otherwise, I would have probably found it so baffling that I might have given up on it like halfway through.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm glad I knew that going in, and also kind of had I not known, I would have thought the resolution was much too abrupt.
Oh, yes.
Almost like a punchline.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I too was spoiled. I must say, I don't know whether I would have finished this if we hadn't been reading it for this.
Mm.
I mean, I'm glad that I've read it, but yeah, it's an odd thing. Because also, whilst I was reading it, because I was kind of like showing pages of it to other people, and they said that it's very reminiscent of a book called House of Leaves by Mark Danielewski, which has, if I just flip a page, because I have a copy of that beside me.
I do as well.
Yes.
And it has an accompanying album. His sister is the once famous singer called Poe.
Okay.
And her album Haunted ties into the book, which is
Right.
has like audio elements of it.
Yes.
But yeah, I see how you say that. It's very much like that.
Yeah, because apparently when Jim Mortimer was originally, when he was redoing it for the New Zealand Doctor Who fan club people, he was wanting to have randomly generating kind of like endings. So each time you read it through, you had a different ending. And it's just, I understand that there is a musing here about death and about, maybe it's about kind of like the strength to carry on. But I don't know. I mean, I guess it's interesting, but I can't say hand on heart that I enjoyed reading it.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat where I'm glad I read it finally, because I heard about it so much for years.
Yeah.
And I also can see how it may have potentially influenced future bits of Doctor Who, like we were talking about, like that section of Flux, or parts of it remind me of like the Doctor's confession dial.
Yes.
Except you sort of retain your memories each trip through. Or even in like Steve Cole's book that we read, 10 Little Aliens, where he has that choose your own adventure section.
Yeah.
Kind of tying into Jim Mortimer's original multiple endings sort of thing.
Yeah.
And even here he hints at that, where, after Susan starts unplugging the game, reality fractures again, and we get two versions of one where Ian throws a pillow at her, kind of like, don't you dare hook that up again.
Yeah.
And then one where Barbara does.
Yeah. But also as well, I appreciate that Jim Mortimer went through an enormous amount of effort making this. And because, I mean, there's a lot of what can only be like hand-drawn art. But I do kind of think, I can't see how the BBC would have published this. I haven't read the bits of the notes where he might have talked through the original synopsis that was sent. But I mean, I can understand possibly if the BBC were expecting a traditional historical adventure, that they might have been somewhat confused by this.
Yeah, and it didn't feature much in the way of Alexander, because
No.
I mean, the prologue with Alexander almost reads like a video game cutscene.
Yeah.
Which, in hindsight, is very appropriate.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it kind of kicks things off.
Yeah.
But it isn't what he had outlined in Burning Artemis.
Yeah.
And I appreciate how experimental it is. and how radical it is.
Yeah.
But it's just not to my taste, and how the resolution was so negative and counterintuitive.
Yes.
Because, in most video games, you try to live and not die
Yeah.
as an outcome.
Yeah.
And maybe that was reflective of Jim Mortimer's mindset at the time, saying goodbye to the franchise, or saying, well, if you're not going to publish this.
Yeah.
It's odd, I guess, because it's almost like a love letter to the original concept of the show, and taking the ideas in Edge of Destruction to an extreme that they could never do on television.
Yeah.
But it's just that such a negative spin that just it taints the good parts for me.
I was just thinking that there aren't that many other franchises where something like this could happen, or could even be considered as being published. I couldn't imagine a Star Trek novel having anything quite like this, or Star Wars, or Jim Mortimer's written Farscape. I've never read any Farscape original novels, but
funnily enough, I have them on my shelf, but I haven't.
Okay,
haven't read them yet. It'll be another spin-off podcast of media tie-ins or something.
Yes.
But it's just even though this is a shorter book, it's just an incredibly dense, kind of like you were saying, like almost like a methodical read.
Oh yeah,
and like the prose he uses is just very flowery and almost poetic in places, and it demands concentration. So an example of that is, and this I think this is a lovely quote on its own, but it's somehow I had never quite been able to leave behind the habit of wearing clothes I felt comfortable in. In a strange way, it felt too much like abandoning something precious, something I might never find again. So you have those just profound deepities, sprinkled in throughout this, that you kind of have to step back and work through and wonder if he's just commenting on something generally, or if this ties into something specifically in the story. And I mean, like the TARDIS library, I really thought that was kind of a cool scene.
Yeah.
There's a moment when the Doctor is comforting Barbara decades after Ian's suicide, and he quotes kind of what the second Doctor tells Victoria in Tomb of the Cybermen. But rather than comforting her, it triggers her, because there's, where he's like, there's no one else who can do what we do. And she's like, well, there's no one else left in the universe.
Yes.
So, kind of taking that and putting it on its side.
Yeah. And I enjoyed the comic strip of John and Gillian, but because there are certainly bits of this that I will remember. As well as, the sheer shock of seeing some of the art. I mean, there's one page which is kind of like made like a crucifix with the words, "Oh my God, it's inside me," or something along those lines. And it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, well, this is something that's happened. So. Yeah, it is definitely memorable. Yeah, it is an interesting read, but as I say, it's not one that I can actually hand on the heart say I enjoy. But wait, should we get to the point where we say the numbers, or
sure? Yeah. So for me, I guess I'd give this one a 6 out of 10.
Yeah,
I can definitely see why it was rejected by BBC Books.
Yeah.
And I think I would have scored it higher had there been some changes to the win conditions.
Yeah.
Just the outcome and goal of the game was too depressing.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think it's a 5. I mean, it was a very interesting experiment, but there were times where I just felt utterly unmoored. And I guess that's partly the point, but also because I know that somehow or other it's all going to get reset at the end. But yeah, it was very weird. And I'd like to be able to dip into a Doctor Who book and stuff. And some of the books that we've read over the 60 episodes, some of them you do have to put a little bit of time aside and just concentrate. But this I was having to put afternoons aside. I was like, right, okay, Thursday night I am going to be primarily reading this.
Yeah, and I feel like Jim Mortimer is one of those authors that demands your attention.
Oh, yeah.
This even more so than usual. And
yeah.
I'm glad that we have an experiment like this.
Yes.
And it's, don't get me, I mean, I'm glad I read it, and it's good to read things that challenge you from time to time. And that I don't see myself revisiting this one. And I guess that's one of the things I love about the book range is its ability to experiment. But yeah, with that said, there's just sections of this book that I just really struggled to comprehend, verging into like Falls the Shadows territory.
Yeah.
It's just like almost like experiencing like a lucid fever dream at parts.
Yeah.
I wish there was almost like a more streamlined version of this where, if there had been, say, fewer iterations where you had like a novel version, a comic version, the TV version, the annuals version.
Yes.
And just limit it to 4 or 5 TARDIS teams instead of including, say, all 5 early drafts
Yes.
of all these characters as well.
Yes.
It just was, for me, like a case of over-egging an already very rich pudding.
Yes, because it's already quite experimental, but it'd be cool to have done like a photo comic strip, as you sometimes got, certainly in British comics in the 80s, but using some of the kind of Akira snaps.
Yeah, that would have been a cool version of it.
Yes.
Like use a telesnap reconstruction
Yes.
of like a missing.
Yes. Yeah. But the thing is, I really want to read the Alexander the Great story.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Give me Alexander the Great.
Yeah, it was tantalizing because we got hints of that, but
Yes.
And in the author notes, we do get 2 full versions of that Burning Artemis outline, and
Okay.
what's described there is much more straightforward and traditional, and
Yeah.
would have been I think a really good book as well.
Yeah.
And Lars Pearson, who was at Console Room this year, he made the comparison of Campaign being like an enthralling Twilight Zone-esque memory play.
Yeah.
And I can see that for sure. And incidentally, there were fan reports at the time that new editor Justin Richards, who was taking over stewardship of the range from Steve Cole at the time,
Yeah.
he was seen at Gallifrey 1 in Los Angeles buying a copy of this book in the dealer's room. So that's how he got a copy of it to read.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess from the TARDIS crew's perspective, this probably takes place somewhere between Planet of Giants and the Dalek invasion of Earth, I would think, but it's hard to say.
Who knows? I mean, given how experimental and weird the book is, maybe it happens with Stephen and Dodo.
Imagine this for a sequel. Dodo digging out of like an old box. Hey, doctor, what's this game?
Yes.
She hooks it up to the TARDIS.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like yelling, no, don't do that.
Well, also, you have to hope that it happens at some point fairly early on. What if Susan decides every now and again to plug this in? I mean, and what if, maybe say like Romana plugs this game in? Is this...
Yeah, it's very dangerous.
Yeah, is this something that like the TARDIS crew just do to amuse themselves from time to time?
It's like a holodeck gone wrong.
Yeah, or maybe it's what's keeping Chameleon busy, that he's just playing the game of me all this time.
That's now my headcanon. That's where Chameleon was all this time. He was playing this game. Wow.
Yeah.
And it's just the version of the story we got is so light on the character of Alexander, it makes me want to read, there was a script published years back, the Farewell Great Macedon, as like a potential First Doctor and crew meeting Alexander.
Yeah, and that was actually turned into a big finish, featuring William Russell and Carol Ann Ford, written by Nigel Robinson. And it looks like it was a promo for DWM, possibly, at some point. But so it was in 2010. So it looks like you can get it possibly on the Big Finish website.
Huh.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll go have a listen to that then and get
Yes.
the story that I thought I was going to get, or the one that's hinted at the end of this story.
It's set in the final days of Alexander the Great, which I think would be an interesting time to set the story. So, it's Babylon, and maybe you might see him kind of like go on the giant and fatal all-night party. Yeah.
We will.
Hopefully it would make more sense.
Yeah, listen to that as like an end cap to the madness that was Campaign.
Campaign, yes.
Well, shall we move on to listener feedback?
Please, yes, please.
Well, I think we're still in one piece. So we have 2 pieces of mail this month, which is great. Listeners, please write in at andwbcpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to get more mail to read on the air, and write in and tell us your thoughts on Campaign or any of the other novels we've read. So first up, we have an email from listener Van Turner. Chris would be able to do the honors for this one.
Oh, yeah. So Van Turner, Van writes that... I started listening to this podcast with the previous hosts and enjoyed it. I was disappointed when the podcast stopped. I was very happy to see it come back, and I've enjoyed your reviews. I review Doctor Who books, mostly Target, for Goodreads, the Doctor Who media review on Facebook, and a local fan group called Armchair Time Lords of Crew to Who. I read Deep Blue years ago when it was published, and admit I'd forgotten what it was even about, though I remember not really caring for it. Your thorough review brought it all back to me. My heaven's a good thing. And Van says, I'm now thinking I might give it another shot, provided I can find a copy, as I no longer have the one I read. This is a great podcast for Doctor Who book fans, that niche within a niche, of which I'm a proud member. I enjoy your banter and look forward to hearing many more reviews. Yours in fandom, Van Turner. And Van ends the email with a quote. For some people, small beautiful events are what life is all about, which is the Doctor from Earthshock. I suspect that that's probably Van's signature rather than a specific quote that Van chose for that email. But yeah, that's lovely, isn't it? That was
Yeah.
yeah.
It was wonderful. And
Yeah.
thanks, Van, for also being kind enough to leave us a review on iTunes.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. And listeners, please do take a moment to drop us a review or rating on wherever you're listening from. It really does help the search algorithm in terms of letting people know about the show.
Yes.
And our second email of the month is from listener Adam Turnbull, and he writes that he loves the podcast and was wondering if we'd ever consider reviewing either of the Time Lord Victorious novels. He says they're mostly a mixed bag, but he likes the ideas in them. And thanks, Adam, for your kind words and the suggestions. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if listeners know this, but kind of as a guideline, we try and wait at least a couple of years after the time of a book's been published.
Yeah.
Just to give folks enough time to buy the book and be, we don't want our reviews to detract from any, potential sales or anything. So, the earliest we'd probably consider the Time Lord Victorious books being eligible for review would probably be in November of 2022. And, that's why we waited so long to review At Childhood's End and haven't reviewed Scratchmen yet, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for the kind words. And yeah, listeners, please do write in with your suggestions about future books you'd like us to consider too.
Sure. Yeah.
Chris, how about on the Facebook side?
We've had a usual flurry of likes, but no comments as yet. But the action, as ever, is on Twitter.
And Twitter, we've heard from more than one listener about something we omitted last month.
Ooh.
In all our excitement over At Childhood's End, we forgot to mention the Pete McTighe season 26 trailer.
Oh, yes!
Where
yes.
Ace is playing the same version of Ace as was in the book, and it's at her Charitable Earth building overlooking London. So our apologies there. Because I had seen that trailer at the time, I think, when it came out. We just forgot to mention it. But
yeah. And also, Pete McTighe's on another fantastic trailer for season 22.
Oh, that's right, with Perry.
Yes. Yeah.
Good to know that she's survived Brian Blessed.
Yes. Yeah. Though it's somewhat weird that the Doctor is just kind of like dropping her off on the TARDIS for the anniversary of her husband's death every year.
Yeah.
It's like a weird thing to do. But at least we now have a potential spin-off series with the Doctor, Perry, and that guard. So.
Yeah. And then also on Twitter, we've heard from Keith Say, 50DW50, and he writes in to thank us for the At Childhood's End podcast, saying it's an entertaining as usual, and he resists the urge to describe it as Ace. And he also shares about this month's book that he remembered finding Campaign both baffling and intriguing when he read it all those years ago. Keith and I also got our copies of Campaign out to compare Jim Mortimer autographs, and we kind of realized in a Sally Sparrow, Billy Shipton moment, it's the same rain, that it was the exact same red pen that Jim had used to sign both our books with. And Keith's was signed, Regards, Jimbo. And mine was signed, Meet Robots, Go Back to Start. And we've heard from our friend, the Irredeemable Shag,
yes,
about the console room panel that I was on. Yeah, he called it a great discussion, and nice to see Matt representing the wilderness years. So thanks, Shag, for that.
So,
all right, Chris, I think this brings us to our 61st selection.
Yes.
And this is one of the things I love about this show is the utter randomness and possibility
in
where we go next, much like the adventures of the TARDIS itself.
Yes.
So would you do the honors, please?
I will. So hopefully this one might be a bit more conventional. But yeah, so we are going to be experiencing a TARDIS crew that we haven't read before, at least certainly not in a novel.
Ooh.
An author that we've not read in a novel before.
Okay.
And possibly, who knows, maybe at least one of the actors involved might be coming back. We are going to be reading Shining Darkness by Mark Michalowski, featuring the 10th Doctor and Donna Noble.
Oh, okay. Very cool. I'm trying to picture that book and I can't, which is, it's on my shelf somewhere, I'm sure, but
Yes.
Cool.
The cover has David Tennant and Catherine Tate kind of looming, just as, if you believe the Plymouth Herald, maybe they might be looming over the show's future.
Donna Noble, I think, is probably my favorite new series companion. So
yeah, and we've not read any book featuring her, have we?
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. I don't think we have.
Yeah. So
very cool.
But yeah, having grown up in Plymouth, I find it bizarre that the Evening Herald, which is what I used to know that paper as, was suddenly become this kind of like centre of the Doctor Who speculation about David Tennant coming back, and they've had a couple of other stories, and it's like I don't know who it is that's running this.
And it looks like there's a audiobook version of it as well.
Yes, I think there is. Yes,
read by Debbie Chazin. I'm not sure who that is, but
she was in Voyage of the Damned.
Oh, that's right.
Yes,
cool.
Yeah, and seemed to have read a few audiobook versions around that time. She contributed to a book, Behind the Sofa: Celebrity Memories of Doctor Who. So yeah. But anyway, so hopefully this might be a bit more conventional.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
Well, happy 60th, Chris.
Yes, happy 60th to you.
And until next month, this has been Matt in Minnesota.
Chris is out of London. Happy reading. Stay safe.
Thank you for listening to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. Special thanks to George C. Music for use of their song Doctor Who Theme Swing Jazz Version. You can follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast and like us on Facebook. Help other listeners to find us by leaving a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice. You can contact the show by emailing your thoughts to andwbcpodcast@gmail.com. And until next month, happy reading.
From an unearthly child to the TV movie is the same as it is from the TV movie to now.
Can you say that again?
Yes, I'll say that again because somebody decided to celebrate a motorbike.
Yeah, this is kind of like the latest Spider-Man movie, but with, if there were thousands of different...
Which I haven't seen. Anyway.
Apologies there. Although I'm sure...
I've inferred, yes.
Yeah.
I've inferred, yes. Yeah. And also, as well, I was just thinking... Whilst another motorbike goes past. I'll just let him finish. I say him, it's almost certainly him. I think he's gone. No, good grief, they're not doing laps, I assure you. But yeah. So Van Turner writes, oh, and it went away. This is like campaign.
Oh no!
It was there in this kind of because I don't know quite how you done it. It was there in this giant blue background of white words, and then it just went. So anyway, good grief, that's going to be campaign flashbacks. Now we know what the Easter egg is going to be at the end.